I am super excited about this TV. The technology is super easy to manufacture, and the idea is so simple and yet gives such great results that it makes it affordable for most people to have really dark blacks in their screen without breaking the bank. This is the Hisense U6G, which is their budget model. They have the U7, U8, U9G. G is the generation. U stands for ULED, which is a really cool technology that is simple in practice and manufacturing and therefore affordable for us to buy. Now this Hisense has two panels. It has a grayscale 1080p panel behind the 4K full color panel. And what that does is it gives you 2 million local dimming zones. Now the Mac Pro Display XDR can't tell you that they have 2 million local dimming zones. Now there are options in the menu where you can turn off the local dimming so you don't get that halo effect. You just have a nice even glow and just let the 2 million dimming zone grayscale panel do your local dimming. And that gives me great results. Of course, your blacks aren't going to be as black, so it depends on the type of content that you're watching, whether you want those really dark blacks. When you turn the local dimming on high, you can get a bright, but the glow is a little bit more. So if you're using a white mouse on a black desktop, you're going to see a lot of halo. It's up to you. I use a vintage lens. There's gonna be a lot more haloing in my lens just because it's an older lens. It's not gonna be a great representation of what I'm seeing here. It really does look good in person, even if it doesn't look that great on camera. Personally, I feel like the grayscale panel does a good enough job to give you good enough blacks that you don't need local dimming zones. You just need a plain full backlit panel. Really dark blacks, and this is a 400 nit panel, so it gives me really bright brights. In my opinion, I watch movies in the dark, and sure, 1000 nits is really bright and spectacular and shows you more saturation, whatever. Okay, that's cool and everything, but 400 nits is a lot brighter than anything that I'm used to seeing. My last TV in this living room was only 200 nits, so this gives us a base level HDR experience, which is much better than what we were experiencing before. Plus, this is a 4K panel, which is much better than the 1080p panel that I had before. Huge upgrade, only about $400, which I thought was very affordable considering I spent $500 on a 1080p panel just a few years ago. So I'm really excited about this Hisense technology, and I heard about it first from Linus at a CES video that they did a few years back, and I've been wanting to get my hands on this panel for a long time, and finally I justified the expense. I'm super happy with the results. The contrast is fantastic. Another thing that is fantastic is the refresh rate. Yes, it's a 60 Hertz monitor, but the backlight is over 900 Hertz, which means it's not gonna give me a headache like my last TV was 120 Hertz, and it gave me a terrible headache. The lights in my room are around 1000 Hertz. Cheap $9 Philips lights are 900 Hertz. These Wise LED lights, or the GE LED lights, they're all around 1000 Hertz. This is over 900 Hertz. Everything in my house is now over 900 Hertz refresh rate, and I don't get headaches nearly as much. I had to get rid of that Samsung TV because 120 Hertz was giving me a headache. And I'm talking about the backlight refresh rate, not the panel refresh rate. The 4K panel refreshes at 60 Hertz. You're not gonna do 120 Hertz gaming on this monitor. It's a 60 Hertz monitor. It's a good 60 Hertz. I really like the smoothness of the monitor. I really enjoy gaming on my Nintendo on this TV. Next, I want to talk about the game mode. When I hook up my Nintendo Switch to the TV, the previous TV we had was about 60 milliseconds of latency. which this TV actually has about 50 milliseconds of latency. So it's a little bit better in its standard mode, but you switch it to game mode, now you're talking about 10 milliseconds. And there were literally levels on Donkey Kong that we could not beat because of the latency. Between the latency of the Bluetooth controllers that Nintendo gives you or sells you for $90 a piece, and then the 60 milliseconds of latency on the previous panel we had, we couldn't beat those levels. But now that we can switch this to 10 milliseconds, we are finally beating levels that we never could before, which is great for Spyro, it's great for Donkey Kong, it's great for Nintendo games. 10 milliseconds of latency, that's not spectacular for PC gaming or anything like that, but it's usable because it's less than 1 frame of latency. Now, what you get when you get the budget U6G is more options on panel size. 50, 55, 60, 75. You don't get those options with the U9G. You only get a 75-inch panel. We went with the 50-inch and we're quite happy with it. It's all we wanted to spend. That's what fit in our space. We probably could have bumped up to 55, but we're very happy with the results. The things you get with the U9G is 1,000 nits of brightness, 10-bit color panel. That's very interesting to me because I would like to have 10 bits for editing video, but I want a 55-inch screen for my video editing. That's something to explore in the future. Let's go over the remote because I feel like this deserves a little bit of time. Yes, it has your Netflix, your YouTube, your Disney Plus, or Prime Video buttons, but it also has programmable buttons. So, you know, the green one I set to Hulu and so on. You have your inputs, which you have 3 HDMI inputs. What's really amazing about this remote is it can operate over 2.4 gigahertz and connect to the TV, so you don't actually have to point the remote at the TV in order to get connection like IR. Which is fantastic, especially when you have dogs, when you have kids, stuff that's standing in front of your TV. Also, the remote has a microphone button, which makes it really easy to search for content rather than having to type by using the arrow keys. But with the microphone button, you just say what you want to watch and it'll look it up for you. It runs off of Android TV, so you can just cast to the TV using your phone. It even works for my iPhone. It's great. So I'm really happy with the way they laid out the remote. It's very ergonomic. I taped a little tile to the bottom of it so I wouldn't lose it anymore. Taped it in such a way that I can still open the battery door. This is a great layout for a remote. I would say the speakers are adequate, and I would say they sound as good as any other down-firing speakers on any other screens that I've heard. The high frequencies are very controlled and not in your ears just bashing you. I still have a lot of trouble hearing spoken word on the monitor when it's mixed in with a soundtrack and sound effects and so on, like a typical movie. But that's from years and years of DJing and absolutely trashing my ears. Whereas Maddie doesn't have that problem. She thinks that the speakers are perfectly adequate. I would like to get a sound bar or surround sound system, which I'm not going to do until we move into a house. There's no low end to speak of, but there is a warmth, nothing bassy, but it doesn't make the vocals sound thin. It doesn't make the movie sound thin, but not quite as much bass as the Samsung TV. A little bit more clear to understand vocals. I had a really hard time understanding words on the previous TV that we had, whereas I don't have that problem on the TCL TV because of how thin those speakers are. I feel like the Hisense TV has a good balance between the bassiness of the Samsung and the thinness of the TCL. I'm not overly impressed, but I'm not disappointed by them. I would say they sound maybe slightly better than the Samsung. Hisense has a rounded speaker system built into their screens, and honestly, it's adequate for now. I'll just upgrade it later when I feel that I can justify the cost. It runs on Android TV, which I thought would be better with the Google Home and the Google Assistant, but for some reason we can't get the TV to turn on when we initiate, like, hey, turn on the living room TV, but it's okay. Like, we just have to run and grab the remote and hit the power button, then we can, you know, control it with our phone or whatever. And I have an iPhone and it works just fine. Maddie's phone with Android, she has a Google Pixel, it works a little bit more smoothly than my iPhone does, but everything works just fine. Now, loading on this TV, when you power it on, when you hit the Netflix button, you wait for it to load, It's not as fast as a Roku TV. I don't know what magic Roku has in their software that makes it load so much faster, but you hit the Netflix button, you hit the Disney Plus button, you hit the Hulu button, within about 20 seconds, you're able to start searching for content to watch. Whereas with the Hisense or with the Samsung, with Android TV, with Tizen OS, you're talking about 30, 35 seconds, sometimes 40 seconds to load up Netflix, to load up YouTube, which is tolerable, but it's not as fast as Roku. And I really wonder what magic Roku is doing in order to get such fast, snappy responses to their remote. And I would like to see more of that in Android TV. Since it is running on Linux, I would think that it would be a lot faster. I really encourage you to go take a look at this screen. When I went to Best Buy after seeing this Linus Tech Tips video, I looked at their display of the Hisense TV and I was not impressed. They had some 240p content from some DVD or streaming thing and it looked terrible. So going to Best Buy, you're not gonna be very impressed by this monitor. But once you get it in person, you put some 4K footage on it, it looks fantastic. Yes, we would like it to be a little more snappy when loading something. We would like it to be brighter, but then again, we could have spent more to get brighter. There are options like the U7G, U8G, U9G to get brighter options. And I'm really happy with 400 Hertz. And like I said, I watch in the dark. 400 Hertz is a lot. I want a dark black. I've really enjoyed this TV and I hope you guys get a chance to look at it with some 4K footage. Maybe ask somebody at Best Buy to put on some YouTube. It is a smart TV, so you can just put on some YouTube if you're connected to Wi-Fi. So just, try it out. See if you can see a difference between the TV you have now and this. I think you'll be impressed by the contrast. I'm really happy with it. I just wanted to share this with you. It's a cool concept. It's very affordable. It's not much more expensive than just buying a Vizio ONN TV off the shelf at Walmart. And you get so much better results, so much better pictures, so much better contrast. I'm just excited about it, so I wanted to share it with you guys. I hope you guys have a good day. I'll see you in the next one.